to visit with one of our favorites, Steve Wyche, an NFL Network's chief national reporter and host of the NFL Report. And you can follow Steve on Twitter and Instagram at Wyche89, W-Y-C-H-E 89. Hey, Steve, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, gents. How are you guys doing?
We're starting to build up for this 49er-Eagle game here. We had a little hiccup last night with the Golden State Warriors in Sacramento, but obviously that Sunday game is big. Is this the biggest game of the NFL so far this year, you think?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, there's a big one every week, but this is huge just because, it's clear these guys don't like each other. You were revisiting the scene where Brock Purdy got hurt. The Niners felt that had he stayed healthy, they would have had a shot to win the game. The Eagles aren't trying to hear that. It's got all the elements of a nice, spicy playoff-like game.
Steve, I need your help because I'm watching the 49ers and the great Kyle Shanahan, but we all know he's 0-36 when trailing by 8+ points in the fourth quarter. And, we always hear, get a lead. The Niners need a lead. And then I look at Philly, Steve, and I'm like, oh, they could have lost to Dallas. They could have lost to Washington. KC had them down 10, but yet they come back and Hurts plays his best ball. So which one would you take? Is that Sirianni, Kyle? How do you view those stats? Because I think that's all going to come to head Sunday stylistically that, one team knows how to come back and the other can't.
That's a great, great question. I'm not saying the numbers are what they are. I'm not saying the Niners can't.
Right.
But they are built in some ways like a dome team. Play with the lead, let your pass rushers get after the opposing quarterback. But we've seen them go toe-to-toe before as well. We've seen them win some close games. It's that 8-point deficit, where you've got to score and get a 2-point or a 2-possession game. Look, right now Philadelphia's got a clutch gene. They make plays when they have to make them. Their quarterback makes plays. Their offensive line is insane. And they've got that tush push, right? If they can get a situation where they can maul you, and that's what they tend to do in the second half, is they just maul teams down. Even if they're behind, they'll maul, they'll wear teams down, then hit some explosive plays. That's something that the Niners cannot do. As opposed to the Niners, not saying, again, they can't do that because we've seen them do that to other teams. It's just weird, when you look at the stats, you just why they have not been able to overcome that. I don't think there's necessarily anything in the way that they've been built, where they can't do that. They just haven't.
Steve Wyche joining us on 95.7 The Game. He is NFL Network's chief national reporter and host of the NFL Report. Steve, I'm looking at this Eagles schedule from a few weeks back, and, it was Miami, then they had Washington, and they're on a Dallas, Kansas City, Bills, Niners, Cowboys run. It is, It's incredible. Is it realistic to think that they're going to win all the games in that stretch? And would you almost like to see them lose one of those games?
Look, that's the big thing about this run that they're on. I think they're 3-0 since they started this gauntlet.
Yeah.
And we were all like, there's no way they're going to get through this unscathed. It's just too brutal. Like that game the other night against the Bills. What an incredible game. Josh Allen could not have played any better for Buffalo, and the Eagles found a way in overtime. So I'm not going to sit here and say they can't go unbeaten. It seems unlikely. And in the bigger picture of things, losing might help them because playing at that level, and the Niners know this, playing at the level where you're just like, we've got to win, we've got to win, we've got to win, when you really have a breathing room, a loss isn't the worst thing to kind of humble you because a lot of times you keep winning, you develop some bad habits, yada, yada, yada,
right.
For the cliches. But, the way that, the Eagles are doing it differently all the time. They're getting better in the red zone. That defensive line, those young dudes that we thought would be withering now, hitting the rookie wall, they're playing better than ever. So, again, it's kind of like that. Everything they're facing looks treacherous. But to the opponent, you're like, yeah, the Eagles look treacherous to us.
Right.
Wow, that just makes it exciting. Jalen Hurts, I just mentioned, Steve, is fantastic. He had his team in the Super Bowl, almost won it last year, MVP candidate year after year. But Brock Purdy, the Niners had that 3-game stretch where they, 3-game losing streak, no Debo, no Trent. And I was telling my partner and the fans, like, oh, I don't know if Brock's coming back to earth, but now he's back. Can you kind of share with us where you have Jalen Hurts and how far, if Brock Purdy is behind that, how close he is to Jalen Hurts?
Wow. Well, Jalen Hurts is different in that he's a creator. He's an improviser. He runs their offense, but again, he can do some things, and not so much running the ball, but scrambling and creating things on the move. Again, Brock is more, and I am not going to say he's a system quarterback because he's not. He's a good quarterback, but he runs the offense with how it is designed. And for the most part, Jalen Hurts does too, but he's just got a little bit more craft work to him. And, and you're going to talk to people when it comes to MVP voting who'll give it to Jalen 10 times out of 10 because of the athleticism, because of some of the special stuff, because of the clutch performances. But, again, Brock, tell me something he doesn't do well. I am such a fan of his. I just don't want to hear people say, oh, the arm strength. I've seen him rip it, man. Whatever. There's nothing I haven't seen him not do.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I want to ask you about, too, is obviously Patrick Mahomes is a Super Bowl winning quarterback, 8-3 in the postseason. All right, Burrow's not in there right now. So I'm looking at the quarterbacks of the teams that may win it. And you got Lamar Jackson, you got Josh Allen, let's just put him there, Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott, and Brock Purdy. What my feeling is I don't look at Purdy. I guess what I'm asking is, does Purdy give you as great a chance as any of those other 4 or 5 quarterbacks that have yet to get it done? Or do you look at Purdy as, you know what, he's below those guys, so he's going to need to do something?
It's a great point. I would throw Tua Tagovailoa in that mix too, by the way.
Fair. Do you think the 49ers have a quarter? When I list all those quarterbacks, he belongs, right?
No. He absolutely belongs. And just let's go back to what we're revisiting. Let's go back to the NFC Championship game. Does anybody think if Brock Purdy was healthy that game would not have gone down to the wire? I'm not saying the Niners would have won it, but it would have been far more competitive than it ended up being. And so he's right there. He's right there. All those teams are built solidly across the board, especially their fronts. That's where the NFL is now. You have a good offensive and defensive line, you've got a shot. And I would include Brock in that mix with everything because, again, when they had that 3-game losing streak, he was turning the ball over. He protects the ball, they win. And again, that's not a system quarterback. That's a guy who is very, very good in the system that they play.
No doubt. Steve, both these teams have a great running game with Swift and McCaffrey, and I know the line of scrimmage is where the games are won at. But is this going to sound crazy? Is the dirty little secret the Eagles secondary and the fact that we saw, Dak and Mahomes drop passes and Josh Allen last week have success in the air? Would you at all be shocked if you see Brock Purdy come in here with Ayuk, Debo, and Kittle and try to make some noise that way?
No, not at all. Everyone in the league knows that you're not strong at every spot, and for the Eagles, it's their secondary. Now I think getting Kevin Byard helps out a lot. That dude makes timely plays. So that was a great move. But people know their corners. They don't have the speediest corners in Bradbury, Debo's favorite, and Darius Slay. But they're crafty, right? They're crafty players. So I think this is where Kyle is going to have to scheme them up. He's going to have to motion those guys. Don't let those guys get hands on them. Let them get some plays, some explosive types of plays. The thing is, the O-line's got to protect because those dudes are coming. Hassan Reddick, they got hunters, man, and they come in waves. They've got so much depth on that defensive front and on the edges and the interior. That's going to be the huge issue for the Niners offense because, the Eagles are hurting. They're hurting at linebacker too. So there's some soft spots in there if they can get, some Kittle, and get McCaffrey out in that area as well in the passing game.
Are you going to Philly?
I wish. I'm not.
Where are you going?
I'll be in studio I'll be in studio doing the Monday night postgame with Andrew Siciliano.
All right. You do a good job, man.
All
Keep it up.
Hey, Steve, thank you so much. As always, you're the man, and have a great weekend, man.
Appreciate you guys.
All right, that's Steve Wyche.